Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Venkatesan Mani, but people call me Venkat, and I'm AS and A-level physics teacher. I also teach IGCSE, Cambridge IGCSE, AS and A-level physics teacher, and I work in Sishi High School, Chengdu, China. And today I'm given a topic on challenges of teaching. So I'm really happy to present my views on challenges of teaching. So I have just pointed out a few areas where most of them are common. So therefore, I just selected few areas where we can talk about the challenges of teaching. So let's start with so this is what my first area where I'm going to talk about the challenge of teaching, which is large class sizes. So if you look at managing a large number of students can make it difficult to provide individualized attention and support to each student. And it is also difficult to give feedback to each student after evaluating the test and their exams. And it is not possible to assess each student based on their ability of learning methods. It is difficult to implement differentiated learning strategies. So if you look at these points, it is difficult to give feedback to each student after evaluating their test and exams. For example, in a class of 20 to 25, if you prepare a test for 20 marks, for example, some students, you know that in a class of 20 to 25, maybe you can select higher achievers, maybe 5 students, and the average achievers or medium achievers may fall in this category, which is from 40 to 50%. And if you look at the low achievers, they may be in a class of 20 to 25, maybe 40 to 45 students are low achievers. So it's very difficult to give them the feedback after evaluating the test and their exams, even for a test of 20 marks. Because in a 20-mark question, if you look at the question paper preparation, you can see we cannot just have only knowledge-based questions, especially at a higher level. You need to include all the components, right from knowledge, understanding, application, and some sorts of skills. For example, interpretation of graph. Sometimes they have to think out of the box and they have to answer. So when we make question paper, we have to include all the components: knowledge, understanding, application, and some sorts of skills. So after evaluating the paper, for example, a student has scored out of 20 marks, let's take 5 marks. So we have to analyze the performance of each student. Why the student has got 5 marks in the paper? Because for low achievers, they're able to write the definitions or some of the statements or some of the equations easily. But when it comes to deriving expressions or using the expression to calculate some missing variables, they make mistakes. So because of that, they have just scored 5 marks. But after analyzing that, how can I give the feedback? If the class size is the 20 to 25 or 25, let's take 25 to 30. Maximum, if you look at the schools in India, not only in India, I currently work in China, I also worked in Qatar. So when I see the number of students in each class, the school says that we have to put more than 25 students in a class. So this makes every teacher to find it difficult to give individualized attention and the feedback. So that's why I have put these points in my the first challenges of teaching, which is large class sizes. Let's go to the next one. Diverse learning needs. Students come from varied backgrounds and have different learning styles, abilities, and needs, making it challenging to cater to everyone effectively. And my second point is it's not possible to understand culture, language, background experiences of each student and providing various instructional strategies, resources, and support to ensure that all students have opportunities to succeed and socially. And it is not possible to identify resources to provide differentiated instruction within the constraints of a typical school day. So if you look at my last point, it is not possible to identify resources to provide differentiated instruction within the constraints of a typical school day. For example,
Sir,
a teacher.
sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt you. Can you select the slide, sir? Because on the screen it's showing only the first slide. Can you move to the next slide?
Sure.
Can you select the slide? Yes.
I will just show new share so that you can see that.
I think
Can you
you are
see the screen
explaining
now?
this. Yes, now diverse learning needs. Yes,
Okay.
please.
So if you look at my last point, it is not possible to identify resources to provide differentiated instruction within the constraints of a typical school day. So here, differentiated instruction. So I have my lesson plan. In my lesson plan, I have strategies for each type of learner. So some of them are visual learners, some of them are audio, kinesthetic learners. I have prepared my lesson plan. But for example, if I try to implement the lesson plan, I will find it difficult. What are the difficulties as a teacher we face in day-to-day life in a school day? Identifying resources. So if I have to teach some kind of topics where I have to support with some activities. So if I have 6 or 7 lessons and without any break, even for me, even if I prepare a lesson plan, it is difficult to bring the resources to the classroom and conduct the activity. So this makes sometimes teachers withdraw the decision to conduct any activities because they are unable to identify the first of all, they are not able to bring the resources to the classroom to conduct the activities. So it will just the lesson plan have just the plan, everything, it will go on a paper, but when it comes to reality, they are not able to implement the lessons. So they are not able to meet the diverse learning needs. So that's why I put these points. It is not possible to understand. The second point is it is not possible to understand culture, language, background experiences of each student and providing various instructional strategies, resources, and support to ensure that all students have opportunities to succeed and socially. So here, what I mean by saying understand culture and language. Having worked in Gulf countries, their spoken language is Arabic, and currently I'm working in China. Their spoken language is Chinese. As they come to school, they have to listen the lectures in English. But what they speak in back home, only Chinese. If it is, their mother tongue. Sometimes they are not. Most of the students, they don't speak English at home. So English just they speak English only at schools. So it makes very difficult for a teacher to understand their the language background experiences and providing them the essential resources for them to meet the requirements of the curriculum. And if you look at the first point, the same, almost like students come from varied backgrounds and have different learning styles, abilities, and needs, making it challenging to cater to everyone effectively. Different learning styles. For example, in a class of 20 to 25, some of them are some of them have good grasping power, and most of them they don't have good grasping power. For example, if you ask a question, some of the students may be able to reproduce it quickly, but some will find it very difficult. And if you look at, especially in science subjects, where a statement will be supported by an equation, and equation should be used in calculations. For example, if a student is not good at mathematics, they will not be able to solve problems. So again, this makes the student, the ability of the student. So we have, I mean, as a teacher, we have to meet these requirements before we make our lesson plans. So diverse learning needs. Here, if you look at teachers, some of the teachers, they don't have enough support and they don't have enough training on these areas, and therefore sometimes they fail. And this is one of the biggest challenge teachers face in their day-to-day life in a school. We will move on to the next slide. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir. Time constraints. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Time constraints also one of the biggest challenge teachers face in their life in school. Teachers often have limited time to cover a broad curriculum, plan lessons, grade assessments, attend meetings, and participate in professional development. This would result in high level of stress and burnout. And preparing lesson plan for various grades would be difficult, and it requires a lot of time even after school hours. Without a lesson plan and correct resources, teaching and learning will not be effective. So for example, if a teacher is given 6 lessons per day, and on those 6 lessons, if the teacher has to teach 4 different grades, just for an example, if a teacher has to teach grade 9, grade 10, and grade 11 and 12, and sometimes some schools ask the teacher to teach 2 or 3 different subjects. So it is very difficult to prepare a lesson plan first, and also it's very difficult to assess, I mean, grading. Grading will be difficult for the teacher. So let's take the preparing lesson plan. Some schools, they don't ask lesson plan. Some schools, for every lesson, there should be a lesson plan. That's mandatory. Wherever you teach, you need to have a lesson plan, and the lesson plan should be prepared in a well-structured manner, and where you need to include different instructional strategies, brainstorming, then a discussion. So you need to plan. So as you plan for one particular lesson, definitely for a 40 minutes lesson, definitely it will take 45 minutes to 1 hour. So if you have to teach 4 different grades, it will take 4 hours in a day after school hours. And what teachers believe, most of the teachers, they believe that each lesson is unique. So even if you have a well-prepared lesson plan, implementing that lesson plan, you need to revise that. I mean, what are your plans? What are the resources? And how you are going to conduct your lesson? And what are the instruction you are going to give to a students? And at the end of the lesson, how you are going to assess the learning outcomes. So you need to, prepare yourself before you teach any lesson, especially science subjects. You need to have activity, and how the activity will go in the classroom. For example, if you want to show mechanical effect of electric current, you need to have the right resources. If you don't have the right resources, you will not be able to conduct your activities. And sometimes if the activity doesn't go well, you cannot, the students will not focus. The span of attention is very low. And if you make mistake with your activities, students will not be able to show interest in your lesson. So this is the point I just put it here, that preparing lesson plan for various grades would be difficult, and it requires a lot of time even after school hours. And in the last point, I have mentioned that without a lesson plan and correct resources, teaching and learning will not be effective. So we'll go to the next slide to see the other areas where students' behavior management. Addressing disruptive and unruly behavior of some of the students would be challenging for any teacher under any circumstances. Handling those students repeatedly would cause serious health issues. Many schools do not have right policies or rules for dealing with those students' behavioral issues. Teachers do not have enough support or training on bringing positive classroom management and handling social emotional difficulties. So if you look at my first point, addressing disruptive and unruly behavior of some of the students would be challenging for any teacher under any circumstances. If you look at in some schools, when government schools or private schools, wherever we go, we need to face these kind of difficulties, especially the unruly behavior. So as you teach in front of 20 to 25 students, there will be few students. Let's take just one student is enough. One student is enough to completely to bring a disaster to a class, classroom activities. If you just try to argue with one of the student, or if a student is not listening to a lesson and they are doing something, for any teacher, they will get irritated. So once you get irritated, you try to focus that student and try to bring the attention of the student. So this will create great amount of chaos in the classroom. So unruly behavior of some students, for me, not even some students, just one student is enough. And this will be a great challenge for any teacher. And handling those students repeatedly would cause serious health issues. Schools will not have any answer for those students. So what they try to do, they try to patch up and they try to console students, console teacher, rather than consoling or convincing or bringing positive attitude in the students. But always try to focus on the teachers and always give, always ask the teacher or demand the teacher to conduct the lesson, even with the disruptive and unruly behavior in the classrooms. And that's what in my third point I have mentioned that many schools do not have right policies or rules for dealing with those students' behavioral issues. So, for example, some schools, they don't have any clue how to handle those students. What they do, they call the parents, and the parents, most of the parents, almost 90% parents, they are unaware of the behavior of the child because they have a very less interaction at home with with their own child, because they come late, and by the time they reach home, probably the student would have slept, and as a result, they don't have very less interaction with those kids. And those kids, what they do at school, almost 90% parents are unaware of it. And when you tell them these things to the staff, these things to the particular parent, what happens? They will be surprised, and they will say that my kid will not behave like this. So this create conflict between the school and also with the parent and also with the teachers. And you need to make for every school there should be a policies or rules for bringing positive behavioral, positive classroom management, and for the teachers and both for the students. And teachers should be supported with enough training. So how to handle these kind of behavioral issues. And if you look at most of the schools, they don't have proper counselors. And if they have counselors, they don't have proper education. There may not be a psychologist who can be a counselor in the school. So just for the sake of having a counselor, they bring any person, and then without any training for them, they become counselor. So what they do with the students, if students have behavioral issues? Nothing. Again, they'll come to the teacher and ask, any worksheet if you give me, I will just manage those students. It's not about worksheet that will help them to improve their behavior in the classrooms. So it's something about the emotional, emotional things. So that should be done. A proper and well-educated counselor should be appointed in each school. But most of the schools, they don't have a counselors. So this makes big behavior management issues with in the classroom. So now let's go to the next one.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. If
Yes, ma'am.
it's 20 minutes and we have many questions lined up, if you can, if you want to take the questions or if you want to finish the PPT quickly so that we can take the questions.
It's fine. I can take the question now.
Sure. So can you stop sharing your screen and expand your camera so that screen
Sure,
so
sure.
that the audience can
Yeah,
have
sure.
a better view of you? Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir. So most of the points are already covered by you, sir, but I would like to repeat the questions. There are around 17 questions.
Okay.
So the first one is you already spoke. How do you perceive the challenges in teaching today? So the
Yeah.
second question: how do you navigate the diverse learning needs of your students? You spoke about the diverse learning needs, but what is your mantra to navigate the diverse learning needs of these students?
So when you prepare lesson plan, the first thing you must introduce the learning objectives. You have a lesson plan, and in lesson plan, you must have included the learning objectives, and those learning objectives should be communicated to the student. So students should be aware of what they are going to learn. So this is the first thing they have to do. As a teacher, they must introduce the learning objective. So once they are familiar with the learning objective, especially to handle the diverse learning needs, some of them are very good at English, some of them are not good at English, and some of you might be teaching like social studies or science or English, whatever be the subject. You must introduce the learning objectives and then vocabulary. That's a very important thing. And each student should read with the teacher, and they should be familiarize themselves with the vocabularies. So once they are familiar with the vocabularies, then you can introduce the topic, what they are going to mean, what you are going to teach them. And as you introduce the vocabulary, then you can introduce some activities, or you can have some brainstorming session, so that you can include all type of learners, even if
Okay.
some of them good listeners, some of them they listen but they don't understand. But if you have different strategies like brainstorming session, discussion, or you can sometime when you teach, you can pause teaching and you can pull out one of the student. It can be a low achiever or it can be a higher achiever. You can pull out any one of the student and ask to, you have to stop at the middle and you have to ask the complete the expression or problem solving, ask the student to do it. And another thing is, as a teacher, you should know the names of all students, and because as you pull out any student, it should not be random. It should be specific. So if it is random, the kind of attention they give during your lesson will be less. As a result, some will focus on the lesson, some will not focus on the lesson. So they think that the teacher is not giving me importance. And as a result, the student will not listen to a lesson. So you should know the names. Even if it is a first day or second day, you have to collect the data of each student and you should you should be familiarize yourself with the names of the students so that you can call any student with the name. So that will be more effective. So this is one way of overcoming the diverse learning needs. But the main points are, you should introduce the learning objective. You should have we should introduce the vocabulary, and you should have the brainstorming or a discussion session before you start teaching. And as you teach, you have to involve all the students in your teaching. So they should always feel that they are part of your teaching and learning process. At the end of your lesson, you must assess. You must assess regardless of what type of learners they are. You will have the low achievers, you will have your higher achievers, but still you have to have a plan for assessing those children. So that's very important.
Thank you. So moving on to the next question, if you can
Yeah.
be precise, can you
Okay.
share an example of a particularly challenging teaching situation you have encountered and how did you address it?
There are different occasions I face many challenges. One particular challenge was behavior, because I having worked in the Gulf countries, uh, it's very difficult to handle the aggressive behavior of some kids. For example, one occasion, I was trying to teach. At the back, a student was sitting, and he was doing something. So uh, actually literally I got angry. I got angry. I started increasing my voice towards the student. The student got angry. He was trying to, he stopped. He stopped doing that, and he was trying to throw something on me. And also, he was just stood up, and then he came towards me, and he was about to beat me. So that time I understand that if a student is if a student is doing something, so yeah, it's a natural tendency of human beings that you get angry, but you should not show up. That's the one thing I faced in my teaching career. But I
Thank you.
later on understand that my behavior was also wrong. So when he was doing something, he was not listening to me. I got angry because some students, they don't listen. So it's not a mistake. We should not deal. We should not take this as a mistake. We should deal this as a behavior issues, and this should be dealt politely or differently. What I should, what afterwards I realized that what should I have done? I should have called the students outside the classroom, and I have to explain to student politely, try to change the behavior instead of giving them, forcefully giving them what to do, or this is what were supposed to do. I can take the student outside the classroom. I should have done that. So that was my mistake. But later I realized that so these kind of students will be dealt in a different way.
Thank you, sir. So what role do you believe technology plays in overcoming teaching challenges?
Um, I have one thing I want to share here. See, for example, technology is very, very good, but our assessment objectives are different. For example, I cannot have only multiple choice for each assessment. So I need to use different ways of assessing the children. I should have multiple choice. I should have structured questions. I should have application-based questions. But what I felt is when we have multiple choice questions, we can include all aspects of the assessment. Like, for example, knowledge, understanding, and application skill-based question can be incorporated in a question. In a multiple choice question. How technology is helpful in this area? So you can have just a zip grade scanner. Even if you have 100 questions, in a matter of second, it can be assessed. So assessment part, definitely technology useful. And when it comes to teaching, technology is very useful. For example, some concepts in sciences is so abstract. For example, movement of electron. Nobody can see the movement of electron, but still we have to convince the student that there is a movement of electron. There is a electron. Electrons are revolving around the around the nucleus. But how to convince the student that electrons are revolving? We need to have a simulations. And I hope most of you are aware in PHET. PHET interactive simulations are very, very useful for those kind of explaining those kind of concepts. So technology is very, very useful and very powerful in teaching and learning, not only teaching and learning, even for the assessment. But this is what we say professional development. So just teaching, it's not going to help you. So what are you supposed to do? You have to train yourself. Train yourself in the sense, not teaching and learning in the same way, in a monotonous, like always like take the lesson on with the on the whiteboard or the blackboard. So you have to take the children outside the classroom. Also, you have to bring the technology in your classroom. So each classroom should be equipped with a smart board, at least a smart TV, so that teachers will be trained, or teachers will be will be demanded to use the technology in the classroom. Because TV is just a TV, smart board is smart board. But how we use it in a classroom, so they have to get trained. Otherwise, they will not be able to use that.
Thank you, sir. So how do you have discussed about parents disagreeing that their child is naughty or they're disturbing the class, something like that. But, what is your way to handle conflicts or disagreements with parents or guardians regarding their child's education?
Yeah, it's a good question, because no parents will accept my child is weak, my child is misbehaving in the classroom. Because no parent, even for me as a parent, I will not accept that, how my child behaves badly in the classroom, right? But we can handle this. So what we did in the previous school, we asked the parents to come to school, and we asked the parent to come to school, and we asked the parent to sit in the camera room. Because we found it very, very difficult to handle the particular child. Even after having meeting with the parents many times after school hours, it's very difficult to convince the parent that his child is misbehaving with the teachers and not listening to the teachers. Because the student is very good at studies. He scores very good. He scores good in the exams. But the behavior is very worst. But how to convince the parent? So what we did one day, we called the parent to school and asked the parent to sit in the camera room, and they watched how he behaves in the classroom. So this is not possible for every school, but having the camera in the classroom and all these resources, and the management also accepted that parents can sit and watch the child in the classroom. So we did it as uh, as test. That's it. But it works well, because parent understood that my child is misbehaving in the classroom repeatedly, because the child is good at studies, and the parent also have the tutor at home. So because of the reason, the child doesn't want to listen to the teacher, and he creates problem with the other student, so that the other students getting spoiled, and also teacher is not able to handle this child. Because if the teacher tries to handle the child, it becomes conflict, because teacher gets angry. The teacher gets angry, normally they shout. As they shout, it goes to ministry. The teacher shouted at me. They will directly go to the ministry to complain about the teacher. So this creates a lot of problems for the schools. So just to avoid those problems, what we did, we asked the parent to come to school and watch the children who were sitting in the camera room, at least for 2-3 lessons.
Right. So despite all these challenges, sir, how do you manage the increasing demands on your time, such as administrative talks and lesson planning?
Yeah, of course, you are right that there are a lot of but with the technology, this can be handled easily. Some of the administrative tasks can be reduced for teachers, and they can use, I mean, some teachers are well trained in using Excel. Some of the data, I mean, mostly teachers have to handle data, like, for example, test scores or exam scores when it comes to conversion, setting up of boundaries, I mean, the grade thresholds. So these areas become very challenging for teachers. So what as a school, they have to do for the teachers, they should be given enough time or enough training for those teachers to overcome these issues, because data is very important. You cannot, I mean, you, you cannot just run the school without data, because figures matters. Even as a teacher or a school, figures matters. So what the student has done for 3 or 4 months, you need to have a data. So without data, you cannot analyze. Without analyze, you cannot give feedback. I mean, you cannot plan anything. So data is also important, and this work should be done by teachers. So what my suggestion is, teachers should be given enough time and training for handling data.
Okay. So last couple of questions, because of the time constraint, we will move to the last two questions, sir, which are very important. That's what I felt. How do
Yeah,
you
please,
stay
please.
motivated and passionate about teaching amidst challenges and frustrations?
Can you please repeat the question, because side.
You have been mentioning about the challenges, and I'm sure like there are many more frustrating moments too. So how
Just
do you still stay motivated and
just 1 minute.
passionate?
Can you please just hold on 1 minute? Just close the door.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So,
Please
what I
continue.
was asking is the last
Yeah.
two important questions. So,
Yeah.
there are so many challenging moments and everything you have spoken about. So, how do you
Yeah.
still stay motivated and passionate about teaching amidst these challenges and frustrations?
So these challenges are a part and parcel of the teacher's life. But what, like you said, what motivates me? Again, students. Because they are the motivating factor. If you see a class of 2025, so what I spoke about just 5%, but there are a lot of good things in a classroom. So teachers, they learn from the students, or they learn for the students. So for me to teach a concept with the different types of learners, I have to learn. Though I know the concept, but I should learn how to teach the concept. So, for example, I understood the concept, but how I make others to understand the same concept. Because as I said, in a classroom, there are different types of learners. So you should learn how to teach those concepts. So that's the interesting, I mean, that is what interesting, and that is what motivating all teachers.
Thank you, sir. Last question.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone considering a career in teaching given the current challenges?
It's everlasting field. Even with the AI, even with the enhancement in AI and the improvement in the AI technology, teaching field would be everlasting. Nobody can replace. That's what I believe. Nobody can replace teachers, even with the kind of technology we have, even with the sophisticated technologies. Teachers, until I think until grade 12, or you can take it grade 10, because when they come to grade 11 and 12, they are matured, and they know how to learn, but they don't know how to balance their social emotional behaviors. For that, purpose, definitely you need to have humans. You cannot replace humans with the AI technologies.
Thanks a
So
lot.
yeah, so anybody willing to do teaching profession, it's actually good for teaching profession. As you see, most of them they do not want to do teaching. I mean, they do not want to take teaching as a profession. The fact is, teachers are, wherever they work, teachers are, I mean, low paid category. They are not paid well, and the schools are growing like mushrooms every day. So and also the thing is, anybody can, I mean, the point is, they easily get manpower. So as a result, teachers are paid very low. So that most of them, they do not want to take teaching as a career. But this should change. This should change, but how far it is possible, I don't know. But anybody willing to take teaching as a profession, we have to welcome them. We have to support them, and they should also continue to teach, because I have seen many people coming to teaching for 1 year and then changing the career to something else. This also creates shortages in teaching field.
Right, sir. Well answered. I
Yeah.
hope they got the clarity. Whoever has posted this question, I feel that this is the most important question.
Yeah.
You know, the one who is who wants to become a teacher, they need to know the pros and cons of this career.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
School Journal of Education and schoolreformer.com. Thank you for the talk, sir, and for patiently answering all the questions. Some of the questions were repetitive, but still you took your time and explained in detail. And I apologize to all the audience because of the technical glitch, like we had to start the meeting a little late. Still, like you waited patiently and posted the questions. I really appreciate that. We thank the audience for participating in the event. We will end the session. And do you want to say anything else, sir?
Yes, for parents especially, um, they have to spend time with the children, and they should know what their kids are doing at school and also at home. You are providing everything for your kids. You bring them, you give them a tab, you give them the resources, you give them everything, but you are not giving them the time. So you have to spend time with your kids. That's the most important thing. And almost in the present generation, they miss this. So this will create a lot of impact in your kids' mind as well as in their behavior. So please do that. That's
Thanks
my,
a lot, sir.
yeah.
We will end the meeting now. Thank
Yeah.
you, everyone.
Thank you. Miss.